We're talking Sola Salons on the Franchisor Hot Seat. Coming up next. All right, both of you have been in the industry, in the franchise industry, for quite some time. And when you two were performing your due diligence to come join Radiance, which is the holding company that owns Sola, I would like for each of you to talk about your journey of doing your due diligence on the business, what you liked about it to set the tone for what our discussion is. Scott, you want to go first, and then John, you can go second.
Sure, happy to do so. Thanks for having us, Nick. So when I started pursuing Radiance, I was focused on kind of making a career change back into development. I had got my MBA. I went to be a president of a brand and realized that I enjoy the growth side of the business versus the mowing the lawn side of the business, which is, the grass keeps growing every day. But so today, where I'm at with Radiance and why I'm here is there's a great opportunity in the health and wellness industry. It continues to expand from a growth perspective. Sola is the leader, right? And so Woodhouse is also the leader, our other sister brand. And I love working with brands that are at the top of their game. The unit model works for the franchisee. The franchisor is profitable and royalty sufficient. And now it's like, okay, where are we today and where do we want to go? And building out organizations and scaling teams so that we can hit our longer term goals as a company and as individual brands.
Before I go over to John, Scott, give us a lay of the land. What is current brand size? What's kind of the growth strategy right now?
Sure. We have 738 Solas to date. We've got about 89 Woodhouses open. We're all about responsible growth. Our team's set up today to open anywhere from 30 to 50 units a year on the Sola side. So we're, to us, that's responsible growth. On the Woodhouse side, we'll average about 6 to 15 units a year, depending on, how fast we're growing on the development side. But it's very responsible. We've got a large team. We can handle it. Franchisees are supported through that process. And by 2030, our goal is to have 1,000 Solas and about 150 Woodhouses.
John, when you were doing your due diligence, you obviously have an opportunity to make a career shift over here. You start looking at the business as an outsider before you're in. What are you seeing? What do you like about the business opportunity?
Yeah, great question. Big question. Again, thanks for having us here. It's an honor. When Scott Thompson calls you and says, "Come work for me," you pay attention. And I've known Scott for over 20 years, so I think inherently the trust was already there. I knew that he wouldn't take on something that isn't worth doing and doing right. And so that helped me to really speed up my process. Just the speed of trust is really big for me. But on top of that, as I started to dive into the brands, really what I look for first and foremost is culture within a franchisor, both among the internal team as well as among the franchisees. I think that franchisee sentiment is such a big driver, because if they're happy and if they want to grow, then you've got a really solid foundation to build on. But and then of course meeting the internal team helped a lot. But on a unit economic level, I look at these models and I say, these work, right? We're not selling snake oil. We're not trying funny math on our FDD to get around the issues of people asking about profitability. We've got a proven track record with both these brands, and I think anytime you've got concepts and business models that are sound and solid, that I can work with that, right? I can have fun with this thing. Obviously I'm here to help us grow with new unit growth, but I've got a solid foundation to build upon. And that was probably the biggest piece for me, was I can't be selling business models that are fundamentally flawed.
There's a big statement that I want to unpack there, John. In you going through the process of joining Radiance and Sola and Woodhouse, you said when Scott Thompson calls, I listen. that's awesome for you because you've had a relationship with Scott over a career. To an outsider that's looking in, the reality is you can look at any franchise brand and they're probably saying, well, our people are great. You just on like the secret truth of why you buy into a business, which ends up being the culture and the match of the leadership team. And if they believe in it, then you know that there's something good here. To a candidate that doesn't know you or doesn't know Scott and might be listening to this, how would you encourage them to go about discovering, like, doing their own homework on who are the people involved in the business?
Yeah, and of course, words have power, but of course you've got to back it up. And I think part of why I said what I said was when I look at Scott's career trajectory, he's got a lot of success with a lot of different brands, and of course brands that align with Sola and Woodhouse, where you've got a pretty big upfront investment. It's a big build, right? It's a real estate play for sure. And that's oftentimes a lot harder to grow than a low investment or, maybe even a home-based style franchise. So I think the track record speaks for itself. But to really answer your question, we've got this incredible process to guide our candidates through this journey of entrepreneurship, franchising, finding the right concepts for them. And a big part of it is introducing these folks to all of the key people that are going to be supporting them going forward. We recently revamped our discovery day process. We now call it decision day. That is not to imply pressure in any way. It's actually implies that we've prepared these candidates so well that by the time they come out and meet these people, like myself, Scott, our CEO, Ben Jones, our brand president, Daryl Hurst, they are prepared from a due diligence perspective. And now we're wrapping it up with that culture piece. And we're spending time, we're breaking bread, we're fostering relationships. And what these candidates are going to find out when they come out to meet us is this is a very warm bunch, right? These are kind people that happen to be super smart and very good at franchising, right? And I think I lead with the kindness piece first, because that is everything in this business. It's all about relationships, caring for one another. Scott talks all the time about let's lead with love. And, that may sound corny or cheesy, but we're all into it, right? We're dealing with humans. We're dealing with people who are putting their livelihoods at stake. So I think if we start with that and then back it up with really good knowledge, education, experience, support, that to me is the magic mix of an excellent franchisor.
Scott, one thing you said in your opening statement was, you said, I did not want to be the one cutting the grass. What is fascinating to me on the Sola business is, and it's probably a double-edged sword in how you position it to someone that doesn't understand what Sola is. You might say we're falling into wellness, but the reality is it's a real estate business executive business. It's almost like you're looking for a business operator, because when I did a persona project with you guys and I'm talking to some of your larger franchisees, and you look at their portfolio of unit size and you look at the labor that they have to operate it, it's very, very tight. And so when I look at this, it's almost a more complex thing to explain, because you're really looking for high net worth individuals who want to build a business operations, not go cut hair. And so is that a complex thing? Because in apples to apples, franchise to franchise, most franchises don't have a construct like this.
It is different, right? We're not like, and the 2 unit models are both in beauty, but they're completely different, right? You've got Woodhouse is very much the service, delivering the service, the estheticians, the massage therapists, like they're providing a super experience for the consumer. But on the Sola side, you're right. I mean, most of our franchisees are like, all right, I want to help people become successful small business owners. I want to help people have that financial freedom. I want to help people have the time with their children. And that's what we're doing with these solopreneurs, these beauty professionals, where we buy by the pound and we sell it to them by the ounce, so they don't have to take the risk of going out and signing a big lease, right? And what that does is it allows them to scale, because then you get good professionals that you take care of and you help them grow their business. And by doing so, your business becomes more successful. And that allows you to scale to multiple units without having to have a large staff, right? A single unit, it's not, I don't like the term semi-absentee, because that means, you're basically saying I only need to work so many hours a week. In the beginning, you've got to fill the space up, right? And a lot of our studios have anywhere from 35 to 60 units in there, suites. You got to go find those professionals to fill those seats. But once you do, and you create the community in your four walls, the machine works, right? The systems are all there to support that. And then that allows for that rapid kind of scalability once you get into one. And we have some franchisees that have 50 units, 60 units. We ourselves own 69 corporate units. So, we're in the business every day ourselves.
Is there some magic, Scott, to the investment? Because obviously when the investment goes a little bit higher and you're looking at portfolio builders, it automatically changes the quality of the candidate that's coming in. So the quality of the conversation has to be higher end. Does that end up being a good protector of who's able to get in? Because, in any of the brands that you've been at, probably the number one reason a franchisee fails is they're just undercapitalized going into this. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that statement, because, we have a great mutual evaluation process. John talked about it. It's very thorough. It's very detailed. You have to have some level of sophistication to get through that process and get to decision day. But it doesn't mean you have to be the best business person, the most experienced business person. It just means you have to understand how capital works. We have, we don't have SBA loans, right? So the industry as a whole typically is not SBA approved, right? It's not just us, it's all of our competitors as well. And so these franchisees have to come prepared to use home equity, use 401k, or use assets they already own to get into the business. And so typically if you're able to get to that level and acquire those assets, you have some smarts to you.
John, as you've managed some of the candidates that have gone through the sales process, and this is me giving an opportunity for you to speak directly to them, what I like to do is say, what are the hurdles that these candidates go through? Because if we can address them and you say, if you have this hurdle, here's the truth. Are there hurdles that are misunderstood in the sales process that could stump up a buyer that you want them to know is either not true or here's a different take on that?
Yeah, dealing with the right candidate, we're coming at some of those big hurdles right out of the gate. I'd say the big one is finding the right territory and carving up the map, right? We're a pretty seasoned network. We've got over 700 locations. So sometimes we have to get pretty creative with that, but we're doing that up front so as to not waste a lot of time. We do have preferred lenders in our back pocket, proverbially speaking, so we can really go at the lending piece right out of the gate and button that up well before they're ready to make a decision, so we can overcome that one. And then, of course, we've got an incredible team on site selection, lease negotiation, kind of guiding people through that process, construction, right? These are the common hurdles you'd hear about with a large investment, big build franchise. I think we've got the infrastructure in place to go at those head on. So it kind of eliminates a lot of that guesswork and a lot of those fears that people have, because we have the best support team for all of those functions. And again, we're going to connect that candidate directly to that team. We've got a vice president of site selection. We've got a vice president of construction. These are my teammates, right? And they're so good at what they do. Part of this is nurturing that candidate to say, we've got you, right? We're going to guide you through this. You're never going to be on your own. There's no guesswork. And for that, it really creates a lot smoother of a process. Again, what we call the mutual evaluation process. Part of this is making sure that people are well capitalized, right? We're going to verify assets up front. We're going to get that personal financial statement. We do have some liquidity and net worth requirements, right? So I think we've done a really good job, and Scott really laid the foundation for this over, curating this process over the last couple of decades to get ahead of any of these potential hurdles before they become bigger than what they should be.
I mean, it changes the definition of a lead or a candidate, because when Scott's process is in place, if you have to get through hurdle one, if we're even having a conversation, then there could be value in that. Scott, what is the liquidity ask and the net worth ask?
John, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not in the day-to-day like you are. I think it's a $500,000 kind of, 250 liquid. Is that right? And I think a $500,000 plus net worth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not too much. Our lenders are wonderful, right? We have one lender that's lended over 400 loans already, right? They understand our business very well. They're very eager to lend into our business. The terms are better than the market. The terms are better than if you were to get an SBA. So 10-year terms, interest rates are lower than prime, than where it is today. And so I think we can get people approved fairly quickly, with their credit score and just kind of a personal financial statement, like John was saying. John talks about the mutual evaluation process, right? We have a new location development process as well that I think, like John was saying, that it really, when the baton is passed, all the details are laid out, and it's not just laid out in a spreadsheet. It's in a system that has workflows and automations, and it's very intuitive. It gives the franchisee a 2-week look ahead on what's next, not only for store readiness, which is which is the design, the construction, kind of the turnover and opening process, but also the staff and service readiness. When do you need to hire? When do you need to recruit, et cetera? And then also community readiness. Our goal is here not just to open locations, but it's open quality sites. And when you have a quality site, that means they're off and running with customers and tours in the doors day one, and they're not having to go find onesie twosie. They're starting with some level of occupancy, right, when they open their doors. And that just takes time when you to build that out and have every detail thought through cross functionally. And so I think we've done an exceptional job with that. And so when new franchisees come on board, they're just going to get so much handhold. And we even have a new location development manager that their only job is to quarterback and talk to the franchisee outside of operations, because all they're focused on is new store openings. They work with ops, they work with design and construction, they're working with real estate, they're working with all the HR folks is to help them again to open the doors at a high rate.
You think, because obviously the focus of this is why is now the time to invest. So first thing, and it's almost an aha moment, Scott, when you were just talking, franchise brands tend to not flip the umbrella or the triangle or pyramid upside down. They go, we're a franchise, here's how much it costs to get in. If we were to flip this thing upside down and look at what are the layers inside of this business, I think a huge thing you just said is we have preferred lending that is giving rates better than what would be expected in the marketplace. If I'm looking for an indicator of whether an investment is strong or not, if the lenders are interested in lending, that means they've evaluated the business and they're confident that whatever they lend, they're actually going to get back in a beneficial way. And so that's an insight that I don't think any franchise brand puts that message front and center. If the lenders are approving us and they're looking at us in a favorable way, then that means we have a good opportunity. You also talked about the depth of support behind the franchisee. Again, if we put the umbrella of we're a franchise and we say, here's our investment, here's an investment at another brand, it might look like equals. This is what the cost is to get in. When we start breaking out layer of, well, for my royalty, this is what I get. And you talked about the onboarding structure, the driving of customer base, the real estate selection, all of this infrastructure behind the candidate. They could be paying the same royalty to another brand and getting far less. And I don't think the candidates say this is a franchise, and then they say here's the investment, and then they say this is what I could make. They don't look at the layers behind the business. And so then we get to, like, obviously when you're even at the net worth that you have to have had some success in business to get into this. This is not a chuck in a truck. Okay, so now you're coming to the table. So it shouldn't really be any game playing. Now we're looking at it as a business. Is this a business that can impact me and my family for what I'm trying to accomplish in my life? And so when we're breaking this down, it gets to the last piece. What John said is we are a mature brand. And so he said one of the hurdles is, okay, is this territory available or not? And so you think about supply and demand, it is deteriorating because people want into this business. And so for a candidate, and I've seen this happen far too many times, they're like, yes, I'm interested, I like the business, but they take far too much time in the diligence stage and they don't have hustle throughout it, or they don't show you that they are indeed as interested as they really are because they're almost game playing. And then when it's too late, they've lost out on that territory because there is a supply and demand issue here. Is there anything else that you guys would add to reasons why now is the time to invest? John, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So IFA is happening this week, right? And one of the themes that keeps coming out of that over and over and over again from some really smart people is the franchise industry is projected to far outpace the national and global economy, right? So as things continue to speed up, franchising is going even faster, right? And new unit growth, new brands coming into the market. So just in general, globally speaking, that is a major trend. That's what you want to see, right? But then you also think about, where the economy's heading, whether it's a boom time or a recession, franchising thrives. That has been proven over and over and over again. We've seen it through recessions. We've seen it through COVID. We've seen it post-COVID, right? So I think that a savvy investor always knows that if you have a growth mindset and you link in with the right kind of franchisor, you're going to do great. And one thing about Sola, about 70%, give or take, of our salon pros are in the hair industry, right? Here we are, 3 guys, right? But I can confidently tell you women will never stop getting their hair done, right? That is just, and men for that matter too, right? So we're talking about really recession-proof services that are always needed. And I think also, to your point, really thinking about Radiance Holdings and the support we offer through Sola Salons and the teams we have, by far, and I've been a franchisee, Scott, you've been a franchisee. We've both done this multiple times over as business owners and franchisees within different systems. The number one reason to join a franchise, by far, even above the economics, is answering the question, what level of support do I get? And I can confidently, I've been in franchising for 25 years. I can tell you that the support we've got in place and the strategy behind it and the talent behind this is second to none. And if you solve that for the franchisee, then you've done your job as a franchisor.
Well, again, John, and I think to a novice buyer into franchising, a royalty is a royalty.
Yeah.
But what you just said, based on what you get in exchange for being a part of the system, a royalty is a return.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes the franchise buyer looks at it as like a cost, but the royalty is an investment. And so when you look at it as an investment, what do I get for paying this fee? And you look at the infrastructure, it changes it because most brands charge about the same royalty. It's pretty consistent throughout the industry.
Yeah.
But a brand with 1 unit and 3 corporate staff versus you guys is vastly different, and it's the same percentage.
And I would say, just for an education piece for any newer candidates coming into franchising, is the most important thing you can be asking is current owners, if you could rewind time and invest again, would you do it? Would you have bought Sola Salons? And are you coming back for more territory? Are you continuing to grow within the brand? And I can tell you, we've got so many of our franchisees that are scrambling to scoop up as much territory as they can. And when they've done it, right? They've built these salons, they've filled the suites, they've done the hard work, and they're coming back to do it again. That is the ultimate test of a healthy franchise network. And we're seeing it every month. We're seeing, hey, let me get 3-4 more units. Let me get 6 more units. Let me come back and secure the rest of my territory because I want to develop this. That is the ultimate validation. And again, I can't speak to any of our competition. I can only speak to what we do. Ours is second to none.
Well, I think there's another value piece in that. And this is to obviously give a pat on the back to those who are bringing in these franchisees. But the reality is, when a franchisee continues to scale, that means they weren't sold a franchise. They were like, their expectations were also set correctly. And so when you look at these brands that have so many sold, not open, it's locked up territory without development going on. The reason the franchisee doesn't continue to expand or build out those next units is because their expectations were misaligned from the get-go. And so they signed this lofty agreement, and then they got into it and they got unit 1 going, and they were probably overpromised in some fancy item 19. And then they're like, you know what, I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit. I need to see how this unit does because it's not aligning to what my expectations are. That ends up being a testament to how franchise development works within a system too.
Yeah. And last point, and then I'll pass the baton to Scott. But the other key thing, if we were to flip it and try to look at things to avoid when you're considering a franchise, is look at the closures, right? Go into the FDD, find out what the trend is there. And I can tell you, we just don't close locations. We don't. And if we do, it's for a very specific reason. But most franchisors will have a hefty closure rate. And that also tells you if you're in this thing for the long haul and if the business model actually works. And I can tell you that I haven't seen FDDs like ours, probably ever, where we get them sold, we get them open, people come back to buy more, and then we just don't close them.
Scott, and John's being humble. I mean, last quarter alone, we added 14 new units, right? I mean, we're growing at a pace now that, we're definitely gonna achieve our target in 25 already. I can see the writing on the wall. But a lot of it is, like John's saying, existing franchisees getting FOMO because they're like, oh, Sola's back out in the market recruiting new franchisees. I know they're gonna find great people because we're great people, and they're getting that kind of FOMO, and John's kind of reaping the benefits of that.
Scott, close with this. Candidates watching this, what do you want them to know to just get off the fence and make a decision? So
franchisees that are multi-unit operators of other systems, like our SFAB, we call it our Sola Franchise Advisory Board, are made up of some incredibly smart, sophisticated, hungry, passionate entrepreneurs who own other businesses outside of Sola. So this is a great way for you to diversify, scale, be part of a company of other successful franchisees to collaborate with. This is a great company to be a part of. Other thing that we are doing, Daryl is an incredible leader coming from Driven Brands. He is building out his support team from a scaled perspective, and we have incredible field support staff that will help build strategic plans for you, whether you want to buy 5 units, 10 units. And then my team is just locked and loaded. We've got Ashley, Dan, and their teams. They're here to support through the entire process as well. And then lastly, Annie on our marketing team, incredibly sophisticated marketing person. She's building out a very world-class team. TSG Consumer is investing in us. That's our private equity partner. They have consumer insights. All they do is work on consumer brands. So we have the data to tell us where the demand is and what we need to do to go get the folks into the 4 walls. So, and our CTO, Jeff, and the team he's building, our tech side is just off the chains as well. I mean, I think we have all the pieces to really accelerate this rocket ship. So,
yeah, I mean, if I'm coming up with a term, it's almost humble support. Like you guys taught, every brand said that they support people. You just laid out a roadmap for how you're going to have an army of folks behind you, making your chances of success in business higher. And so if we're obviously deterioration of market availability will create FOMO, but then when you back up the business with everything you guys just talked about, that's what makes this great. So for John and Scott, thanks for doing this, guys. I think this gave anybody that's watching this a good view into the human side behind the business, and should encourage you to reach out. The last thing I'll say, and I think this is important for any candidate, if you have not engaged in a conversation, the beauty of filling out a form on a Radian site, Sola or Woodhouse, is it costs you $0, and you get an opportunity to talk with a team that's been there, done that. So at the very least, even if you don't buy the business, just to be able to talk with someone in franchising about what they like and how they approach things could be a tremendous value. It costs you nothing to fill out that form. You don't have to buy something, and obviously then you get to start networking with guys like this. So guys, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Hey, Nick, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Nick.
For John and Scott, I'm Nick. This was another Franchisor Hot Seat.